of years ago, I did a video using wax paper and a Cuttlebug folder. I wanted to bring that technique back today and show you how pretty it can be when using it all by itself as a background paper in a card featuring the new Petals and Wings Stamp TV kit. Let me show you the tools and products you need to do this background paper. First, you're going to need a Cuttlebug folder, and I'm using the Floral Fantasy folder here. Then you're going to need a piece of wax paper, and I cut my piece of wax paper a little bit bigger than the folder itself. Then you're going to need some ink, and I'm using the Memento Desert Sand ink because I want to make a very soft and subtle background. You're also going to need some cardstock, and I have 2 pieces of the Gina Designs Pure Luxury Layering Weight cardstock in white. You can also do this using other colors of cardstock, and that'll give you some different looks, but for today we're going to use the white. So to begin, we're going to start by placing this piece of wax paper inside this Cuttlebug folder. And you don't have to be real precise. That's why I cut it bigger. And you'll be able to see exactly where it actually went through the folder, or where it made the impression, because it'll be all crinkled in those spots. Then I'm going to use my Cuttlebug here. And I'm going to start with an A plate and a B plate. This B plate down. And then I'm going to lay the Cuttlebug folder on top with that piece of wax paper inside, and then put the other B plate on top. Now I really want this to make a really deep impression. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another piece of cardstock on top of the whole sandwich, just to make sure I really get some good pressure, because wax paper is so much thinner than cardstock, so it shouldn't have a problem pushing all of this through. And I'm going to crank it through. There we go. Okay. Now the one tool that I didn't tell you in the beginning of the video that you are going to need is an iron. Now you can see here the impression that that Cuttlebug folder left behind. Isn't that pretty? Okay. So now for the next step, I'm going to lay a piece of cardstock underneath, like that, and make sure that it's centered. And then I'm going to lay another piece of cardstock on top. And the reason why I'm doing that is because the wax paper has wax on both sides, and the impression is on both sides. Even though you get the negative on the back, you can still make 2 really pretty pieces of background paper, so you might as well do them both at the same time. And then using an iron with no water in it, because you don't want any steam, you're just going to iron that. And you want to put some nice pressure on it, and you want to make sure that you do it long enough that everything gets melted onto those 2 pieces of cardstock. There we go. Okay. And now I'm going to just pull that apart and give it just a second to cool off. And you can see a lot of that impression is gone off of there now. Now let me just flip this over. And we'll start with this piece. Once that's all cool, we'll give it just a second to cool. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to grab another piece of scratch paper here. This way I'm using a cool piece of cardstock. Okay, now using a direct-to-paper technique, what I'm going to do is rub this ink pad all over the surface of this piece of wax papered cardstock. And you can start to see the image appearing. Can you see that? And we'll get an up-close shot for you here. So you really want to ink that up real well. And then, using some paper towels, I'm just going to rip this in half so I can hold it with one side. You're just going to wipe away the excess, because the ink is not going to stick to the wax paper. It's just going to lay on top, so you do want to wipe that off. And then we'll give you an up-close view on how pretty this looks. It almost has kind of a batik look to it. Get that turned over there. Isn't that pretty? You can see all of the detail from the wax paper in that. See how that flowers? But it does look very batik, very much like a hand-dyed fabric. Very pretty. Now let me show you my finished card project that I did using this. And you'll notice here I used the exact same ink pad as I used in my finished card project, but once the ink dries, it dries a much lighter shade, and you can see that here, and it gets much more subtle. Here's a dry piece, and here's a little close-up shot of the dry piece. You can see it's a much more subtle look once all of that ink dries. Lightens up quite a bit. So here's my finished card project. And what I did here was I just took a piece of the 120-pound Pure Luxury white cardstock to make a card base. And then using a little bit of our chocolate brown, I layered the piece of Cuttlebugged paper, and I added one of the images from the Petals and Wings Stamp TV kit and one of the greetings, and just colored them in with a little pop of red to make it stand out. And that's just a very clean and simple thank you card with a beautiful background. So soft and so pretty. Although this technique makes a soft, subtle background when using muted colors, have some fun and experiment with vibrant ink pads and busy patterns to make background papers for all kinds of card projects.